What's up, everybody? We're back here for episode number 9 of the Level Up Your Life podcast, and we have a special guest here, my very good friend, Matt Foster. Thanks, Matt, for joining us today.
Yeah, you got it. What's going on, Billy?
Oh, man, doing great, man. Excited to have you here. Before we get into your backstory, I'm going to share a backstory about us. We did my first podcast about like 18, 19 months ago in my family room with my dog dancing around in the background.
Yeah.
You can hear his nails all over the place.
Scratching around.
So it's great to have Matt back here, and we're going to get into some great stuff. Matt has been just absolutely on a tear during Corona, and I want to share what he's been doing. But first, I want to share a little bit about your background. Matt, would you share a little bit about who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, no problem at all. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Started in first grade, flipping full lunches for Canadian chocolates that my mom would bring back when she would go to Canada. Over the years, cut lawns, did all kinds of different stuff. As I became an adult, I found different industries where I spent periods of time in. I was in the CBD world. I was in the THC world. I always knew I was supposed to be in real estate, but for some reason, we're always attracted to sometimes what's more difficult or sexier or whatever else. So I chased a few different rabbits, had some success, learned a ton of lessons, and ultimately ended up back to where I was supposed to be, which is hopefully where we all end up at some point in alignment. So I'm in commercial real estate right now and heavy on the investment side, multifamily, and brokerage and sales.
Man, that's awesome. I love hearing you say about how you got to where you needed to be, because so often, we do chase those things, and we kind of beat ourselves up. Well, I really want to be over here, but you got to kind of taste everything. Dip your toe in a bunch of different things to kind of figure out where you really are supposed to be. And it's awesome that you were able to get to where you knew you always wanted to be, but you had to kind of try all that out, and all that experience is leading to the success that you're going to have and you're having right now.
Kind of like dating, kind of hard to know yourself and know what you really need in someone else. Unless you've actually dated other people to know that.
Absolutely, man. Wow. That's awesome. And like I was sharing when we first started, is like the big reason why I wanted to have you on here is you have dominated everything during Corona. You're already an extremely disciplined person, but the level of discipline that you had every single day, I wake up and there's that message. You're right at the front of my IG story, and it's like, boom, Matt Foster, and always something positive. Win the day to, whatever, just some sort of positive mantra to start the day. And then it's like right there to your run around the park or whatever. Yeah. And it's just like, it's so inspiring to see that discipline. And because of that, physically you're in great shape. You lost weight, and your career is getting to where you need it to be. And all these awesome things are happening, but it all is built around the fundamental of discipline. Yeah. And you're one of the most disciplined people that I know. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on, is I think so many people kind of got distracted in this period of time. And teach their own. Everybody needed some time. Some people needed to rest. Some people needed to just ramp things up like you. And so I wanted to bring you on because I want to dive into that. What kind of led into that, and how you got to where you're at now. And so let's go back to beginning of Corona. What was your mindset going into that? Like, was it like, oh man, I've got this opportunity. How am I going to utilize it? What was kind of your mindset going into that first couple of weeks of, especially March? You were at Conversation About Content. Yeah. We're high-fiving, handshaking, hugging everybody, man, close conversations. And like 2 days later, I think that was Saturday, Monday, expos are being canceled. We were supposed to be, Diego and I and the rest of the Go Fresh team were supposed to be in Anaheim, and that got canceled.
The world's shutting down step by step.
What was that like for you, and what was your mindset going into that period?
On the first week of COVID, it was a lot of confusion. Just like yourself, I have a huge network, so I was reaching out and talking to a lot of people. And like yourself, shows are getting shut down, expos are getting shut down, NBA shuts down, Disneyland shuts down. So I remember my wife and I just driving around, just feeling kind of confused, like, man, what the hell is going on right now? And at the beginning of something, you have no idea how long it's going to last. Everybody has their theories, but we're just gambling at that point. So I got to say, in the first week when it was all going down, it was more like intel time. Like, okay, I've changed situations many times, so I know that I can adapt. But in the beginning, I didn't have enough terrain knowledge to know how to wage whatever my next war was going to be.
Wow. So was that what where were you at mentally with that? Was it like, oh shoot, like, do I have to figure something out? What was it like? You knew you hadn't had that experience yet, but like, what was it like? Oh shit, am I screwed? Or did you go to like, problem solving? Like, how do I figure out where I need to be, or what was that like?
Yeah. So immediately, just like everybody else, it was pretty much like we got sent home. So now I have 40, 50 plus hours on my hands, and you got to start determining what you're going to do with that time. For me, we always hope for a moment when the whole world would pause. We're spinning so many plates. We got so much going on. We're like, man, if the world could just pause for like a day, I could really get caught up, whatever that means. Right? So now the world is slowed down. Now I've been given back 40, 50 hours a week. And then all of a sudden I felt this desperate fire just kind of building inside of me. Like, don't waste this moment. Like, just beyond what everybody else was. I saw everyone was chilling. Everyone was sending me shot for shots and push-ups and everything else. And I got in on some of the push-ups in the beginning, but then
I think you tagged me on one of those.
Yeah. After that, and my wife will be testament to this, it's just almost like a rabid hunger for, okay, I got all this time. How can I 10x where I'll be coming out of whenever that's going to be, and what habits can I start implementing right now that are fail safe. It's not a gamble on those habits. It's actual habits that we know for sure that we always wish that we would implement that take us to that next level.
Nice. And just to take a back step, we're probably, I knock on wood, we're not going to have to go through this again, right? That's the hopes.
Yeah.
But in life, we have these types of moments, right?
Yes.
We had the whole world shut down.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between that and like what happens to a lot of us in a day in, day out basis. You lose your job, a family member dies, something happens where like your world is just shook.
Yeah.
And so that's why I want to go into this, because while we never are going to go, like I said, knock on wood, we're never going to go back to this. We go back to this all the time mentally.
Yeah.
And so that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in this unfamiliar territory. What do I do?
Yeah.
And that's why we're going into this. And so I'm giving everybody kind of context of why I want to go in this, because like I said, you really leveled up and really accelerated. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that were like, dude, Matt, that guy just went to the next level.
And to give a little caveat right here, I'm not terribly into myself, in the sense that like I love posting on social media. I have no problem being in front of the camera, but I'm not always self-aware about how positive I'm actually being. And I can't say that I've never seen so many messages during this time of people letting me know that like I influenced them in a positive way. Just being me. Yeah.
It's powerful when you put yourself out there. Often, we talked about this earlier with content, is like, you think it's the boring stuff, but like Gary Vee says, that's the stuff that matters. And that's the stuff that inspires people. You were just being you. You were just day in, day out. Yeah. And how many people that impacted? I mean, you probably don't even know, because a lot of them probably didn't even reach out.
Yeah.
And maybe they told me and they never messaged you and said, wow, Matt, you were inspiring through that period.
Yeah. The only thing that I did notice was that my story this whole time kept going up in the amount of people that were watching it. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully, whether you messaged me or not, I hope some of my positivity kind of came through the airways at you. And for a lot of people, I was also sensitive that I'm just wired like how you are as a hard charging entrepreneur. So if it's not this, then it's that. And I'm getting after it. So I know for a lot of other people, this was a very serious time on your mental health and on your family life. And even, sometimes life is easier when you're not around your partner 24/7. You got to deal with that. So I also am sensitive to, it's not all just happiness, but if watching my stories and some of my stuff and me just being able to be me kind of put a smile or helped your day out, like that makes me happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're there, you realize you don't have the experience, or you're kind of trying to figure things out.
Yeah, chunky.
So are you saying that in a physical sense?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, straight up.
So, and that's what I was about to get in. So how did you determine what you were going to attack? Because you were it seemed very intentional with what you did. So there had to have been a game, and knowing you, there was a game plan.
Yeah.
This wasn't just like, let's just go work out today and let's go do this. There was a game plan. How did you develop that and kind of take us through that process?
Yeah, 100%. So I had already implemented a coach at that time, and I'm big on coaches. Like, I'm big on coaches for personal projects, and I'm big on board of advisors. So I like to think of a table that's around me and certain specific people, whether it's on credit, finance, real estate. I have a top level person that has actual experience and actual success in that realm that is on a friendly enough basis with me that I can give them a call and we can talk through things. So luckily for me, I had already graduated on like, man, I'm getting chunky. I was almost 200 pounds. I had implemented a coach, a physical coach, Clemente. So I know that you guys know each other.
Absolutely.
And we had set down some macros and some workouts that I was going to start doing. And I feel like I had just started getting going with him. So it was almost serendipitous that we were able to take it up to another level, because before that we were trying to take it on a pace that I could fit with a lifestyle where I put in, 50, 60, 70 hours a week of work.
Wow. So it was almost meant to, weirdly enough, meant to be that it was like perfectly timed.
Yeah.
And you wanted to get there, but this was the accelerant to help you get there.
And that's why I was excited, because you always hope like, man, if life could just slow down for a second, then I could like do 2-a-days and follow it like really aggressive macros and just kind of like get ahead of a bad lifestyle. Because going back to habits, I think during times of stress, we fall back to whatever our most basic habits are. And I think also our life is defined by the habits that cover the majority of what we do. So if you're going to sit back and choose and have some time to be strategic about the habits that you take on, and you know that when life gets back to normal, you're going to fall back to either bad habits or good habits, it's kind of up to you what you're going to implement.
Now, when you were implementing these habits, did you take an inventory of what was working, what wasn't working, or how did you go through that process too? Because you attacked what seemed like personal development.
Yeah.
Obviously the physical aspect, the nutrition, spirituality, I'm sure was incorporated in there. I know relationship improved. There was so many different things. Were they laid out where you're like, okay, I want to work on this, this, and this, or was it some of it was intentional, some of it just kind of happened by circumstance? Take us through that.
Yeah, so fitness would probably be the number one habit that kind of just helps everything else. Mm-hmm. So like just getting that really dialed in to where I'm getting running in every day. And then I didn't really have access to weights because I didn't have a home gym built. So doing like calisthenics and push-ups and body weight type work, and actually still got some pretty decent workouts out of that. So fitness being number one, we all know that is an accelerant. So if your life is a fire, fitness is an accelerant to all levels of whether it's your confidence, whether it's just like the energy that you walk around with, how you're seeing things, how you're actually like even thinking. Another big one that fitness does is unlocking your DNA. So I'm big on, if you push to the edge of where you think that you can go, you start unlocking this kind of infinite DNA that we all have inside of us, that you don't even know how far that goes because you never actually push it to that point. So what was nice at this time was on that first habit of fitness, it was all about unlocking the DNA.
And you were running every morning, am I? Running
almost every single morning, yeah.
And I mean that there, I hate running, but I love running.
Yeah.
I don't like the physical activity of running, right? But especially long distance. But there's nothing else like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of the road. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh, I'm at the end of the road. Maybe I can go to that block. And then that's that runner's high, and you start building up that confidence. And you're like, well, shoot, I did that yesterday at this time. Maybe tomorrow I could do it at this time. And you really start to push yourself. How much, and going back to, you talked about body weight. Often it's an excuse of like, I couldn't go to the gym, so I didn't get a workout in. Mm-hmm. How much did that build up confidence in you that you can incorporate a workout no matter what the situation is, whether you have the time to go to the gym? Because sometimes driving to the gym is, with a tight schedule, not always able to happen. But you were able to no gyms were even open, and you were still able to accomplish health goals, get great workouts, and improve your physical activity. How much has that built confidence in you as well?
Yeah, because it showed me that no matter what the situation is, whether I have access to an air-conditioned, fully stocked corporate gym or just God's green earth, I can find a way to work out.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think Mike Rashid back in the day, he did a video on taking workouts outside anyways, even when you do have access to your fully optimized type of gym. I just can't describe how good it felt, because I don't remember that, like, getting outside that much since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like taking walks with my wife, working out outside, being just in nature, other than like random hikes that we'd go on sometimes, like just getting that much actual like sun and being around nature, like it changed me. So now that outside has been reintroduced, now my wife and I have new habits in the sense of like finding new fun that involves actually being outside, and it's on our plate now, whereas before we never would even think about taking a walk. Like, oh, we're fine.
It would be the last thing.
Yeah.
You'd be like going to dinner, going to doing this, doing that,
Walk
all these
to the
normal
car.
things. That would be the walk to the car.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think I saw a lot of people. One of our employees at GoFresh, he also works at a bike store, and was saying how many bikes they were selling through their online website, because they're doing like curbside pickup, and they were selling tons of bikes. And he's like, I don't think I ever saw so many people riding bikes. And I was like, yeah, I actually noticed that as well. And I hope that the habit that's going to come out of this for much of our society is that we're going to enjoy much more outside activities.
Yeah.
Because we were shifting to this video game inside culture.
Yeah.
And now we're getting out, and there is something powerful about being outside and getting that physical activity and allowing the sun to just hit you. I mean, it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've seen you do a lot more walks with your dogs.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, man.
like they're loving it.
Yeah.
So.
I was kind of talking about my own self. This last year, I had to realize all my commitments that I had to get to, and the habits that I wanted to develop, and it became like, okay, I was getting a walk in every day with my dog, because my dog is him, he's a monster.
Yeah.
He's got to get a walk, otherwise he is a monster. and so I was doing these walks, but I was like, maybe a half a mile, 3/4. Sometimes I'd be like, I can only make it around the block, and it was like, no, I need to be up at this time to do this, and take my dog for a 2-mile walk every damn day.
Yeah.
And the results were, not only did I get this like just endorphin rush every morning because it was consistency. And it was like, it's like, people say, oh, I need to drink a cup of coffee. That's how I start my day. Well, man, reading my books, meditating, breathing, cold shower, this 2-mile walk, that's my cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And it became where my function of the rest of the day was so much higher, and my mental focus was just dialed in, because there was this like, this routine, and there's so much power in a routine.
Yeah.
And that's what I noticed with you. And that's why, we obviously relate on a lot of different topics, but that was one thing that I was like, damn, like it was awesome to watch you do it while I was also trying to develop my habits. And it was like, all right, it just, every morning I would wake up and you beat me up almost every morning. And I was like, all right, cool. I got to, like, Matt's already posted. I got to do this. Like, I got to catch up.
Yeah.
So but there's power in that consistency.
Yeah.
And I think we undervalue consistency, and we go, oh, we're too busy. There is something powerful in waking up at the same time every day and doing those same things that warm your body up. Your body starts to become, it's a creature of habit. And when you build that habit, it performs better.
100%.
I know that's always said that, if you go into your bedroom and you do all these other things while in bed, your body loses the sense of like, oh, I'm in bed. It means go to bed. And your body creates that habit of like, oh no, I'm up, and that's what causes bad sleep habits often.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of same thing that we attacked, was we created these consistencies every day that allowed us to be even higher performing individual throughout the day, because we had this great warm up routine.
100%.
So how much now? We'll get back more into your routine, but how much have these habits continued through as things open back up? Have you been able to maintain this discipline? And do you think that was like the foundation was really laid during the Corona period, the lockdown?
Yeah, I think once you get a taste of that better life, you're a lot more defensive about holding on to good habits.
And so what do you mean by better life? And I mean, I kind of get it, but like I want to go into what.
Yeah. So going back to like the habits that I was able to actually stack up during this time, one being fitness, two actually being more connected to my higher power. That is a big overarching piece of our life is busy. We're entrepreneurs. We're going all the time. You know, we're not looking for handouts. We want to go gather. So having the world slow down, I felt like I was actually really able to connect. And that's where I found a lot of my happiness too. And I think that shines through when I know that I will take action, but I know that the things that I can't control are being handled on a bigger picture. Life is pretty easy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You just mentioned something, and it's planted a seed for me. Habit stacking.
Yeah.
And we both read it was the Atomic Habit.
Yeah.
And he talked a lot about habit stacking. So going back to the beginning, was it one particular habit you started, or did you go, hey, I already do this, now let's add this on? How did that start? Because often we want to jump head first into the deep end, but like you kind of got to take it step by step to build that momentum up.
Yeah. So two parts. One, it was actually way easier to stack a lot of plates at the same time right now because, you know, if you didn't have your usual requirements on you, kind of eating away at your willpower or at your time or at your energy. So I felt like it was easier to implement several habits at the same time, and just get used to having, and they're all kind of cohesive. Like fitness goes with this, and reading and studying, and like if you're going to write every day, writing 10 minutes every day, it all works together. I'm losing exactly where I was going with that, but so two parts. One was your habits, being able to implement them in a time like this, because you have so much free time, so just able to stack those plates. And then number two, keeping on the consistency when you know what the overall plan was. So one of the big parts too is when time slows down, you have time to think about what you're actually doing in your life. So I actually went ahead and did, for the first time ever, actually like a 3 to 5 year vision, and then a 1 year vision, and then a monthly vision, and then a weekly vision. And then it becomes real easy to break that down into what do you need to do every day. And then I got back to an old habit that I had kind of disregarded a little bit, which is planning the day out the night before. Because I feel like when you sleep on it, it almost like activates it in your mind, and then you don't have to waste any brain power thinking about what you're going to get to. It's more just about doing what you already determined what your best day was.
You're executing.
Yeah. So those two parts. So it was kind of almost like a hyper habit season because everything was just stalled down to almost like a crawl.
Yeah. I mean, it was an amazing period that we were lucky enough to already have some momentum going into, but then to be able to like really accelerate. I definitely agree. It was this rare moment in time, even though I was still pretty much working. It was 50% of what we were doing before, and so it was a slowdown period where I was really able to hyper focus on this thing. Yeah. A lot of the plates that we were spinning were no longer spinning, and so we were able to focus on these things. And I think those people that were able to maximize this time are going to see the results paying off in the next 6, 12, 18 months, and obviously continued there. But I think this is going to give us a running start into this now open season for us. You mentioned doing your different goals for 3, 5 years, 1 year. Mm-hmm. That's often something that I think it's like one of those things like, man, if I had some time, I would do this.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'd never done it before.
Okay. So had you ever done goal planning? I mean, what was kind of your previous goal planning, and what now looking at what you've done, how is this more efficient or an improved process?
I think like most people, I would do more of like a yearly plan, and that didn't necessarily have to fall on January 1. That's kind of the typical time to like think about, okay, 1 year's over. We got a year ahead of us. What can we get done in a year? I'd kind of played around with other concepts. There's like the 12-week year where you kind of redo 90 days every 90 days. And I kind of did that for a bit, and it's somewhat effective. But I think really reaching out to what you can accomplish in 3 to 5 years, you can make some real damage if you're focused. So when you have that long-term vision anchored, I feel like it's a lot easier to build everything back to where you're at right now and deal with the short-term sacrifice instead of actually making 6 months to a year is somewhat short-term goals and being disappointed on the sacrifice that you have to make.
Absolutely. You know, I think it's interesting because there's that saying that we underestimate what we can accomplish in 30 days, but we we overestimate what we can accomplish in 30 days, but we drastically underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years.
Yeah.
And we want to fix the problem today.
Yeah.
But the problem can't, we want to become a millionaire in 30 days. Oh, we didn't make any more money than we did last month. I'm a failure. I can't do it. But if we had stayed on that path for, the course of whatever, 60 months, we would have accomplished more than we wanted to accomplish than we thought we could have accomplished. And it's staying that path, but you can't stay on that path unless you know where you're going. You don't know what path are you on if you don't know your destination. And I think you clarified where you're going. And so you know that when you have a bad day or a bad month, you still know, all right, I'm still going there. I got to stay true to this destination.
You're still able to track overall forward progress. Whereas if it's a little bit shorter terms, when things meander, it feels a lot more dramatic when the goal is not that far out.
Yes. And, I mentioned to you earlier, clarity brings confidence. You created clarity. So now you're more confident when you have a hurdle or you have a moment where you maybe don't get the result that you were looking for.
Yeah.
You still know exactly where you're going. And it's not just this thing up in your head. You put it down on paper and you created the vision, and it's probably something you often read.
Yeah. Yeah. On a weekly basis, I'm kind of consolidating all my notes of the weeks. I've broken down my life into projects, next actions, which are the next physical thing to move that project forward, and then someday maybe. So if I'm not going to be taking action on something, but I don't want to forget it, having all three of those lists together.
Keep going.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry. I thought we were having technical difficulties there. Having all three of those lists and then all the random notes that I write during the week, and having one day, usually like a Sunday, where I actually consolidate it all and then kind of prepare for the next week, kind of keeps me on track for my mind being clear and knowing that I'm making that forward progress on the overall goal. So I'm not necessarily reading the 5-year vision every day, but I'm readdressing everything going towards that once a week.
Nice. So, and I apologize, guys. I do run a business, and I gotta say one thing real quick. Diego, can you call Brianna and just tell her that we're good to go with those grab and goes? Okay. Yeah, I just realized that's what she was calling me about. So I apologize, guys. This is not just an entrepreneurial podcast. We are entrepreneurs and we do run businesses.
Yeah.
So and we are in the midst of a very busy season for GoFresh. Actually, Diego, can you tell her to just take it down to like 50-50 at Modesto Turlock and Pleasanton 75. Yeah, total numbers. Thank you. I apologize, guys. And Matt, I feel horrible that I'm going to kill the flow. But you said something earlier, and I think this kind of goes back into the goal plan. Well, I might be totally wrong. I have never thought of doing something like writing for 10 minutes. You mentioned that as one of your habits. What was that habit for? And what were you, if you don't mind me asking, you don't want to say if it's private stuff, but what were you writing?
Yeah. So for me, it was actually just clarifying my thoughts. I got that tip from Jordan Peterson. And I've actually, it's revealed a lot to me when 10 minutes a day, you actually write about what's kind of going on between the space between your ears.
It's almost like a form of meditation. I've literally never, obviously I love writing, but like I've never thought of it like that. Really breaking down what is going on up there.
Yeah. And then I've noticed that ever since I started doing that, my communication became better. My thoughts became clearer. I became a lot more focused in. I specifically knew where to say no when I needed to say no. And then also I felt a lot more present, because I feel like when we got 5 different things rattling on upstairs that we haven't made a decision about or haven't clarified or at least put away from our minds, we're never fully present to engage in the joy of whatever moment that we're in.
Yeah. Wow. And this is something that I'm now going to work on adding to my arsenal, because it's something that I think meditation and just any form of habit, what might work for you might not work for me. And often people say, oh, I can't meditate. I can't shut it down. But you're not often trying to shut it down. You're trying to put all the pieces together, all the thoughts in your head together, and start to get a flow. And I think writing it for a certain type of person is going to be very effective. And I am a big visual writer, and I like the action of writing. I don't like taking notes on my phone. I don't like just listen. I really, there's something about writing that like just cements it in my brain. And so I got something from this. So I appreciate you sharing that, because meditation, while it's helpful for me, I prefer breathing exercises to kind of like calm, but I struggle with taking some of that thoughts in my head and like remember them. That's often, ideas that come through and we forget them, but really breaking things down and kind of just processing everything that's going on there, whether it be the stress, the positive, the wins, the losses, all that. It's so helpful doing something along those lines. And I'm going to implement that tomorrow. So now, were you doing that in the morning, night? How are you doing that?
I usually like to do the writing at night. It kind of feels like the energy of the day is more about ramping up, and then the night is kind of ramping down. So like what you just said right there about meditation, about breathing, about writing, it was part of my recovery process. So in essence, I think stacking all these habits, I try to take it on like a professional athlete would, in the sense of like full regimented routine, lots of different projects that I'm engaging in one, disengaging, engaging in another. And then at the end of the day, being able to like take my energy level and ramp that down, and then also release myself of the thoughts that are on my mind, and then actually be clear for usually spending time with my wife before ultimately being, tired and going to sleep.
Now for you, so you obviously had a warm up routine, like morning routine.
Yeah.
Evening routine, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is one that I want to dive into, because we hear the morning routine all the time. I feel like that's like the thing everybody kind of knows, like, oh man, I probably should have a morning routine. But there's something powerful in like the wind down. And for me, like you, when you were saying that you got in the habit of planning the day before the day starts, I feel like there's something about the end of the day where you just have clarity of what you actually need to get done. And so when you wait till the morning, it's kind of like, oh, shoot, what do I need to get done? And you're just kind of like, sometimes fires pop up. And while there are important things, they may not be the thing that actually is the most important, the thing that moves you forward. It's the busy work kind of stuff. Like, it's not that you're wasting your time, but it's just not really what you need to do to get to where you need to be. But there's something about the end of the day, at least for me, and it sounds like for you too, that you just have this clarity of where you need to go. Mm-hmm. And you're more focused in on like what actually needs to happen. So when you come to that end of the day, were you doing this right before bed, or were you doing that? You said it was before you hung out with your wife?
Yeah. So like usually like evening time, like sometime probably after dinner. Then we'd usually go for a walk. And then while my wife would usually take a shower, I would like dip out at that time to usually go work on my writing, plan the next day, kind of close everything down so that I'll take a shower myself, and then we could actually just hang out and I'm free. Because one of the things that I've noticed is that like when you're an entrepreneur that has a ton of energy, I am never bored. I can always find something to work on, always, and which is a good trait, but also a bad one when you want to make specific special time for hanging out and just being able to listen and be just in the present moment with your loved ones. I think a lot of times we're still like always solving stuff in our head. So if like I take a period of time to kind of either delegate off out of my mind or actually in that moment solve some things, I'm a way better person to be around.
That's awesome. And, I think often as entrepreneurs or high level achievers, we can easily be hyper focused on one thing and like almost abandon everything in our life. Yeah. It's probably a downfall to a lot of high achievers. And they struggle with having significant others. They struggle having friends. They struggle having health, good, healthy habits. And I often look at life as a wheel. And if you only have one spoke in it, that wheel ain't going to roll right. It's going to boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And that's how the life of a highly focused entrepreneur tends to be. While you might be super successful business-wise, everything else, your happiness, your health, all those things could be in the absolute just gutter. And I think we often as society don't see the balance of life and the importance of that. And so that's why I wanted to kind of talk to you about that and kind of dissect where you're at, because while you are focused on your career and the achievements you need to get as an individual, you also need you need your partner. And I mean, Jessica is a very powerful person and a great supporter of you. And without her, you're not no offense, you're not the same Matt that you can be. And so if you don't even give her that time, that's actually devaluing you. And so there's power in being able to be fully focused and present with her that actually moves you forward. And I think sometimes people are like, I don't need my girlfriend, or I don't need my wife, or whatever. Like she doesn't get my focus. Like I gotta grind, man. Yeah, but you also need her.
Yeah.
Like there's something about having that rock that constant support.
And my wife looks at life with a different framework. So actually bringing some of my entrepreneurial problems in front of her has actually been one of the best changes that I've ever made. I used to kind of keep it to myself. These are, this is my mission. She's not really into it. But at the end of the day, she has a different level of critical mind than myself. So usually she's able to poke some holes in it. And
that's awesome. And
so she actually does make me better across the board and in my own business.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously, I'm friends with both of you guys. But it's so awesome seeing you guys together, because you really do mesh, and that it is something that you're both conscious of supporting each other, working together. I mean, when we went to dinner last week, I mean, that was an active conversation, and it's refreshing to talk to you about it, because it's not just like you and I just talking about business. Like we can all relate, because Naomi and I are very much the same way. Like we are constantly talking. Last night we were breaking down. Well, hey, we got hey, I want it. I need help here, or hey, I'm going to work on this, and I just want you to know this is what I'm working on with this, and da da da. Like that open line of communication is powerful, because when you're stressed about your significant other, or you're not on the same page, you yourself are just not the same caliber of person. And so I love that that's an active part of your end of the day routine is clearing your mental space so you can create that time and that focus and the presence to be with your significant other, and then to become a better power couple that you both can accelerate in life.
Yeah, that communication is way more important than people think that it is. Staying in constant communication, things change over time. People's mindsets about things change. Sometimes you're able to help them change. Sometimes they help you change. One thing about my wife and I that has been super successful in our marriage is deep level, honest communication, so that we both know where each other is coming from. And then we're able to actively support each other in where we're both trying to go. And it's not always in the same direction, and we're not always doing the same things. And we support each other on those activities that are not necessarily together.
Yes. I think sometimes as an early entrepreneur, you want that. You're like, my wife's not, or my girlfriend, or whatever she is not an entrepreneur. She don't get it. Like, you don't have to have an entrepreneur girlfriend to be an entrepreneur. You just have to be there supporting each other towards your goals, your growth, and focused on that growth together and communication. And I think what you said that you both get well, you didn't say this in the exact term, but you get to speak your mind, you're a high level communication, and you understand what each other want, but you're also probably even better communicators. You're better listeners. Yeah. And you're able to hear what she's saying and not just think what you want to think. You're able to hear her out and put yourself into her role and get it and comprehend it.
You can actually listen to your wife and you don't have other thoughts talking to you.
Yes. Wow. That's huge. And there's so much power in that end of the day routine. And whether it be the beginning or the end, I think that's where we often get caught up into our day's results, whether good or bad. And like I'm up on freaking cloud 9 because I just had this win, and I'm more focused texting Matt and telling him, "Oh man, I had this great day." And Naomi's like, "Wow, I feel underappreciated." Yeah. But you've been able to end that day, complete those text messages, decompress, and then have this great, powerful time with your wife. That's so powerful.
Yeah, 100%.
Man, I appreciate you, man, sharing all this. So going through this, man, we've covered a lot on your habit. Why have you focused on habits, and why has this been something that you really wanted to attack during this period?
Well, I think I touched on it earlier, but our lives are defined by our habits. And I think that that's 100% true. I'm not sure if someone said that already, but they probably have. If you think about someone with a bad life, usually that's going to be defined by bad habits. And if you look at someone with a good life or different versions of success in their life, it's probably due to good habits or habits that feed that success that they want.
That's awesome.
So that's why habits are super important. And then it just seems like you and I are both a fiend for kind of finding and appreciating the best in their industry. And it's really hard to just do things off the cuff all day, every day. Oh. You need a mental groove of good habits where it's harder to not do it than to do it.
Wow. So this is a good kind of transition talking about high level people.
Yeah.
So during this period, okay, so we talked about your warm up, your warm up and your end of the day routine.
Yep.
But in that middle, you're a very high level achiever. And all we talked about was the beginning of the day and the end of the day. We're talking about like a couple hours of your day.
Yeah.
The rest of the day, man, I saw you working very closely with Matt and you were setting appointments. You shared on a team call about how you were able to connect with all these influencers. While yes, you are an amazing habit builder, you are even a better networker. And I mean, that's why we sit here today,
yeah.
you know.
And I appreciate that, bro, because that's if you do something that you love that you didn't have to get paid for me, it would be just interacting with people all day, every day. And
I mean, that goes back to what we're talking about with your relationship. You're an amazing communicator. And you really, I mean, every time I talk to you, I mean, I get off the call and I'm like, damn, Matt asked me all these great questions. Like, how's Matt doing? Like, we often don't get into what you're doing because you just ask such great questions and you keep the other person talking where you're gaining value. And I appreciate our conversations. Yeah. We do both get into it, but like often, I mean, you're a phenomenal communicator. Was that developed through your networking or were you already a great communicator? And like, how much does that matter in your networking?
I think I became a better networker as I became a better communicator.
And why do you think that is?
I think going back to Jordan Peterson, he's someone who I respect quite a bit, just brilliant. A lot of the stuff that he says is just amazing to me. One of his things is the selling point for college, other than like, you know, that it's not worth the money or whatever else, is actually writing and public speaking and being able to communicate. Because the act of being able to communicate, no matter what your job is, even if you're not in sales, even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're a carpenter, I think this is his specific example. If you're a carpenter, but you're a great communicator as a carpenter, you're 10 times better than if you were a carpenter that's just a good carpenter. Yeah. So I've always been truly interested in people. And I think part of being interested in people, and because I actually love connecting and being close to people, you just get better and better at seeing what type of person somebody is, how they like to engage in conversation, at what pace, whether it's fast or slow or whatever else, and kind of tailoring yourself to, you know, the level that they're comfortable at, and then being interested in enough to truly want to know what makes them tick. And I think that's what's made me a good networker, is because deep down, I'm until the day that I die, I'm going to always be curious on, why does Billy do it like that? Or what's that? What's behind the clock? Like, why is it ticking exactly like that? So I naturally already have a drive of wanting to kind of peel everything back. And I think with that kind of motivation and a focus on becoming a better communicator, it's easy.
That's crazy. There's so much power behind that as we unpack that. You know, what I hear too in there is that you have a high level of self-awareness in the conversation. And I think often we're not self-aware to how we're reaching out to somebody. And we just are like, I need this from you. like, I want to meet you because you're successful and I need successful people around me. But you're really aware of like who they are, what they're up to, and you don't just communicate with them because they're successful and they've got a big Instagram following, and you're like, I want a big Instagram following, so I'm going to connect with them. You have an intention, and you also understand how you can add value to them. Like, you're very self-aware going into the networking situation. I mean, from the first moment I met you, it wasn't like you were just trying to get something. You never once have you ever tried to get something from me. You were just caring, and how can I add value to you? And you were aware to how you can support me, and you really have cared more about me than ever getting something from me. And we have been able to support each other because of that. But so often I think people want to build a great network, a network like yours that's just, I mean, you have so many different industries that you can connect people with. And I mean, often like I'm like, hey, I'm trying to do this. And you're like, dude, you need to talk to this person. You need to talk to this person, blah, 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 blah. And because of your ability to be self-aware, you've been able to build this, but often we just miss the point. And people are like, I want a big network because that's how I get successful. But you gain knowledge from these people and also contribute value. And you've figured out how to give back more than you're getting from them often. And that's where you build great relationships.
Yeah.
I think people want to build a network because they want to get something from it. You build so you can gain, you can contribute value. It's a partnership more than I need something from them.
And especially if you're successful, like how many jackoffs are getting after you on a daily basis, you can smell that a mile away. And even the person that does create a huge network, usually it's a house of cards.
Yeah.
I pride myself on, if I'm going to get to know somebody and have them in my network, then it's usually always off of, I like to think of it like this little game of my whole life is this game of concentration or match, in the sense of like, we're talking and you flip over your card and it's a 9, whether it's a month later or a year later, say Anna over here shows me a 9. I'm like, oh, Anna, you're a 9 and Billy's a 9. You guys need to talk about this 9 situation. And keeping track of that. So I'm always constantly thinking about the people that are in my network. How can I help them out? What doors can I open it up? Because that stuff really, truly excites me. And I think that's why I've been able to retain a ton of friendship and loyalty from the people that are in my network, because they know that I've been an open book. Yeah. I haven't like just used them and tossed them to the side. It's more like, how many doors can I open for you? How many are you willing to actually run through? Some people, like, you can't make them drink. And at the end of the day, like, if there's a door that you could open up for me, awesome. But if not, I'm still super happy that I could have some impact on your life. And that's what really drives me in my network. And people feel that. People feel the difference. And also having quality. Like, if you actually have quality people in your network, that you have enough discernment to know this is a person worth spending time with or having, then when you refer them or connect them with someone else, you're not wasting their time. And it's a constant game of who's worth it. And there's a lot of winners out there. So if you actually open your eyes and can discern who the winners are and who the losers are, and that comes with time, then instead of creating a house of cards, you create, back to a word origin, what a true network actually is. It's a net for catching fish. It's just like welding work or anything else. A network is actually a huge knot that has been connected by many, many strings. And the bigger the net, the bigger the fish that get caught.
That's awesome. Dude, you're dropping so many bombs. But I'm like dissecting little things in there. You know, I'm seeing like you develop with your network. It's not like, I think sometimes, like you said, jack-offs are these people that want to...
Hey, you got 5 minutes for a cup of coffee?
Yeah, well, because they want something.
Yeah.
They want something. And they think, if I have the Andy Frisellas, the Gary V's, the Dan Fleischmans in my team, man, they're going to help me get here.
Yeah.
Versus you going, I want to put great people around me because I want to be able to connect them and help them become great, rather than, and the byproduct is you become great as well. But like, I think the thing that's most undervalued about your network is that you don't end up with a Dan Fleischman like that. You don't just, like, you're not just this dude that's got a job and then all of a sudden Dan Fleischman's your best friend. Boom, next thing you know, you're Dan Fleischman. That does not happen.
No.
You develop, like we met 2 years ago when you walked into GoFresh. I think I had one location at the time, and you weren't even, you were in CBD, and like how much has come along, and we've been able to support and network with each other, whether it be through coming to my events and meeting different people, or our accountability group, where met Jordan, like you introduced me to Matt. Like we just have been able to help each other become great.
Yeah.
And the process is our roads just kind of have come along, and we're both we're like, oh shit, we're going in the same direction.
Yeah.
But it was us coming together and being willing to support each other, not like, how can I get something from Matt, or you going, how can I get something from Billy? But it's like, how can we help each other? And I look back through a lot of the mutual friends that we have, we're all the same way.
Yeah.
And I think we can agree on that with other people we know that have great networks. It's that they bring more value to their network than their network brings to them.
100%.
Versus most people want to have a big network because they want to get something from it. Mm-hmm. And it's the value that you bring to the network, not the network brings to you, right?
And I like what you said about your network makes you better. I can say that, especially because of social media and being a visible person, and same thing with yourself, being a visible person, whether you realize it or not, you have to constantly think, and this is what hyper successful people have inside them, whether they realize it or not, is becoming a role model and being a role model. So as your network gets bigger and as your relationships become more valuable and you're doing bigger things, you don't even realize it, but the level that you're going to have to be a role model and send some elevators back down for other people, it just becomes this beautiful situation if you let it, if from the beginning the intentions were correct.
Yes. But it starts with that intention.
Yeah.
And like I said, the self-awareness too, like what are your intentions?
Yeah.
And it's okay to want something from somebody. There are moments in life where I'm going to have to ask, hey, Matt, I know you know this person. Can you connect? Can you make that intro? But it doesn't start with, thank you. It doesn't start with the intro.
Yeah.
It doesn't go day one, I meet you at GoFresh. Next day, I'm like, hey, can you introduce? Like it's the back and forth of the development of a relationship that then there could be the ask.
Yeah.
And I brought up Gary earlier, but Gary V, says, oh, DM all these people. It's how are you DMing them? Like, what are you discussing with them in that DM? Are you just saying, hey, I need this from you, and that's why they're leaving you unread? And you're like, nobody's responding. Well, yeah, because you're just trying to get something, or are you trying to bring value, or trying to contribute to where they're going?
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to have that intention, that pure intention.
And I think a lot of people, like, whether they're vocal about it or not, are having different versions of hard time in their life. And sometimes you just want some encouragement. So one of my biggest joys, and I think a big part of like just naturally how I'm wired, is I'm an encourager. I don't tend to be super critical on people, but I'll encourage you all day and make you like really believe you can get after it and kind of help you see what I see that you can't see, and just encourage you with all the positivity and love that I can, to get after it. And then in return, it makes me so happy. It's kind of like watching your favorite sports teams, but I get it in a more like surgical kind of way, in the sense that like I get to be behind rooting someone on, and I knew it, and I knew that they were going to win. And I helped, maybe got to be a little bit of a piece of their journey by, even if it's just fanning it up and clapping behind them.
See, but that's why you're going to win, because it's not about you. And so often people just want to win themselves and they don't care about the people around them, but you care just as much about those other people. I mean, I'm sure this is for you too. One of my favorite things is waking up in the morning and seeing my Instagram full of people winning. Yeah. Like, oh man, Matt did this. Oh man, Anthony did this, or EJ did this, or Mark did, like, and you just see people winning, and like it gets me. I'm like, yes, like my team's winning, dude. Yeah. And it's not about. It's like me seeing the Warriors win is the same thing as me seeing you guys win, and I'm more excited for your wins than I am for my own. Yeah. And I think that's where power starts to come in, when you're able to be more happy for other people's wins than your own wins. And when you focus on your own wins, people don't want to be on your team. Yeah. And it's okay to want to win, but you need to appreciate the win and the work that somebody else put into their win, and not be like, man, Matt cheated. No, Matt worked his ass off to get to where he's at, and I appreciate that, and I loved watching the journey.
Yeah,
and that's something. And dude, you are so supportive, dude, and I appreciate everything that you've done for me and all the encouragement.
Yeah.
I love sharing with you about what's going on because, dude, you're honest. You're extremely honest. Whether it be telling me what I need to hear, and it's never in a negative sense, like we talked about earlier with the conversation that you're gonna help my friend out with, is that honesty is important, and you're not willing to sugarcoat something, but you're not being an asshole and attack like, oh well, you should have done this and that, but you're like making them aware while being supportive, because that's being supportive. You're always honest with people, and that goes back to that amazing communication. Is you're confident in what you're saying, and you have their best intention, and that's powerful.
Yeah,
it's extremely powerful.
And I think people can feel that difference when the conversation is from a place of I want you to win, but I'm gonna poke holes enough in what you have going on so that if you do decide to continue forward, then you at least were advised.
Yeah.
And you can't maybe be so mad because like, you know what, actually a lot of people did, point it out. And like I've always told people where I disagreed with them and then they went on to win in a certain situation. I've always been honest, like, hey, let me take you out to dinner. Because you know what, if you go out and you really kill it on this, I still want to celebrate anyways, even though I was, more on the, hey, it's not going to work outside. Yeah. So, yeah.
Man, dude, this has been such a powerful podcast. We could literally go for hours. I mean,
and we do
every time we
we need to record our phone conversations, bro. It gets next level.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And that's why when you ask me, you're like, what question? I'm like, I honestly don't think we got questions, because we could just, every one of our phone calls is a powerful podcast, and all of our phone calls end up being multiple hours.
Yeah.
And we could sit here for hours and break everything down. And I do want to come back and have another podcast where we can talk more about what you're doing in your career, but just dissecting, like I told you, my goal was to dissect the networking aspect and your habits.
Yeah.
Because those are two things that I think you are just the most just top of the game at. And the results are going to come at a rapid rate post all this, because I know during Corona, we talked a lot about your habits that you developed, but we didn't talk about the amount of networking that you put in during those times between connecting Matt Atchison, we'll give him a shout out. And, connecting him with other people and working with his team and then meeting. I mean, dude, and anybody I know you were connecting with, it was constant. I saw your name popping up in so many different conversations. Like, oh yeah, I talked to Matt earlier today. Oh, I talked to and it was so exciting. And that's why I wanted to dive into it, because you won Corona. Like you just fucking dominated, because you went after what was gonna move you forward. Your industry might have been shut down a little bit, but you did everything possible to lay the foundation to build a freaking empire post all this.
Yeah.
And dude, I commend you for all the work that you put in. Whether everything was intentional, it all just came together and is positioning you to just win big. And I'm so proud of you and so happy for everything you've been able to do. And I know we touched on like 1% of what you're really up to. But I think these are core fundamentals that people need to know and need to hear, and are the foundation to an entrepreneur's success, of the network and the daily habits that are going to lead to massive success for anybody that takes your blueprint and utilizes it.
Yeah. Happy to share, man. And I got lots of love for you. And I will leave everybody with one tip, just in case this whole situation happens all over again. You don't necessarily need to be as crazy as I've been about habits, like stacking and just like craziness, just getting after it. But I will say that some of the people that usually don't answer their phone, and I'm talking higher level people, were very easy to get a hold of during this time. There was no excuses. There was a lot less barrier. So if you find yourself in a COVID-like situation again, maybe some of that fear you have that you're not qualified to reach out to a certain individual, you might be pleasantly surprised.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, this podcast will be posted next week, so we're still mid-June when this gets posted. Corona's not fully over. There's still an opportunity where people's schedules are not nearly as busy. I know I'm still reaching out to people, and I'm like shocked. I'm like, whoa, you responded like that quick. Mm-hmm. There is still people that are building this habit of connecting and priding themselves on like, man, this is a great opportunity for me too to connect with different people. So don't be hesitant to like wait for the next Corona. Like, well, I missed this one. I want to wait for the next one. No. Like still attack right now and connect with people and take the opportunity that the world is still slow. Like we're not fully, I mean, we as the state of California are just opening, I think, almost fully this weekend. But there's still a huge opportunity right now to start building those habits and connecting with people. So take advantage of this time. So
100%. And that goes back to being intentional of, if you are going to do something, try to make it a consistent part of your life. And if the networking piece is something that you know you need to add, even if it's 10 minutes a day on LinkedIn or 10 minutes a day on Instagram, that's actually intentional for reaching out to people of value. You will be shocked if you can actually stick to it consistently.
It's huge, man. Thank you so much, Matt. You helped everybody here level up. This is the Level Up Your Life podcast, and you helped everybody level up their life. You've been leveling up your life. One final question is, what are you working on right now to help level up your life?
All right. So
I mean, there's probably a lot, and this could be a whole nother podcast. But what's one thing that, like right now, that you're pretty focused on?
One big thing I'm really focused on right now is commercial real estate. So, like I said before, when you kind of jump from industry to industry, it's like you're starting over again in some ways. Someone reframed it for me in a really good way, that instead of thinking about restarting, it's like you actually get put on third base again because you have gained a lot of experience, whether it was in sales or communication or, corporate maneuvering. Where I find myself now is, I think my most effective path forward is to concentrate on commercial real estate. And that involves industrial, multifamily, investment sales, leasing. So I will be piece by piece becoming a master at that, and look forward to doing that for the next couple decades and helping connect a lot of value like I have done in other industries.
Man, I can't wait to see you dominate this, man. I'm so excited to watch what's going to happen from this podcast moving forward, and I can't wait to have you come back on. What I look at as this podcast is like almost like the Joe Rogan podcast where he brings his friends back on.
Yeah.
But ours is going to be like literally like, yo, since the last time, bro, look at where, like, whoa, like, and we're going to be able to show people these jumps in what you said in this podcast and the action that you continue to take to the next one and the results you've been able to create. I think it's going to be a weird way of almost like a transformation type podcast to watch all of us take our young careers and just develop them into these monstrous, careers that I know all these habits are leading us to. So
I'm excited to see us all keep walking through the revolving door with maybe a little extra muscle and some scars and some new experiences.
Yes, absolutely, man. So one final thing, guys, if you have gotten value in this, of course, please share it. If you didn't get value, you didn't listen to the podcast. So re-listen to it. But for all of you that did get value from this, please share it out. Tag Matt and myself. Matt, how can people find out more about you and connect with you?
All right. One of the best ways to find me is on Instagram at Real Matthew Foster, LinkedIn, Matthew Foster, Twitter, Facebook, Real Matthew Foster or Matthew Foster. And I'm happy to bring you guys on board, man. Just message me, and wherever I can help out, just let me know.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with everybody and helping everybody level up. Thank you again, man, for everything you do for me, done for GoFresh, done for our team, man. I'm so excited to see your journey continue, and I can't wait to have you back on for the next episode. So, guys, thank you guys for listening in. We'll see you back here for episode number 10 of the Level Up Your Life podcast.